Welcome in, everybody, to the Crowded Booth. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Will Manis. We're getting ready to rock and roll here on a beautiful, wherever you might be. It's not really beautiful down here in Baton Rouge, but it's a Wednesday night, and we are just so close to the start of week one of college football. Games start tomorrow, so make sure you lock it in. We are going to bring back Addie's picks. It's going to be very good, and we'll see you, obviously, here in just a little second. Thanks so much. This is the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
I don't really know what's going on.
You forgot to mention that Ralph was here, so.
Well, yeah, he forgot to put me on the screen solo, so it is what it is.
He's muted, can't hear you anyway.
Yeah, apparently it's a two-person show today. I do everything for Bryce. Everything.
I like how it's my fault, but it's you didn't even put the thing on there right. But it's okay.
All right.
All right, we'll see you later.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
All right, so we're here live on a Wednesday night, getting ready for week one of college football. It's going to be a lot of fun. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Will Manis and Ralph Leary. Let's, fellas, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what the issue is. Let's talk. Let's walk and talk here. College football week one is here. We had a little appetizer last week where we got to see some interesting things occur on the field. Thank God we don't have to talk about it anymore. We can finally move on to something else. That's very nice. But fellas, let's talk a little bit here because week one has some games, and as the thumbnail says, potentially some must-win games. So we're going to break down some of the games. I will say, I think for certain teams in playoff destinies, they could be must-win games. I'll throw it to you, Will. Is week one a must-win situation if you're playing these prime time out of conference matchups, in your opinion, or can you afford to really lose week one and still get where you need to be and get where you want to be?
For the most part, you can lose these games. We're going to talk about Miami and Florida. This kind of feels like a must-win for Florida. I mean, we've talked about how difficult their schedule is. The back half of their schedule is probably the hardest schedule I've ever seen. So they might have to start 6-0 if they want to make a bowl game, and they got a tough ask with Miami in week one. And then, the Sunday night game, LSU USC, it almost feels like for both of those two teams, it's almost a must win. So a couple games feel like must win, but for the most part, you can recover from losing in week one.
Yeah, you can definitely recover. I will say, and we'll get more into when we talk LSU USC, LSU has not won a season opener since 2019 when they won the national title. So a little bit of getting the proverbial monkey off your back. What'd you say?
Who'd they play?
They played Georgia Southern, who they knocked off in week one. So
I was expecting
they just absolutely destroyed them. So yeah, no, it is what it is. So a fun slate. I really and I love how they do week one now. I mean, I know people hate media rights deals, but Ralph, it's kind of fun because you look at week one, essentially starting tomorrow night on Thursday, you're going to have college football, and you've got some fun games. I mean, UNC Minnesota is one of those that I'm going to be watching and keep an eye on just in terms of the ACC. Then you've got, obviously, you start to look at Saturday. Each time slot's got a fun one. And then Sunday night and then Monday night, which I know Ralph has a vested interest in as well on Monday night. So we'll look at all these and we'll talk about these. But Ralph, this bowl season's fun. Playoff time is fun. Week one of college football, what's it mean to you? How excited are you to have really quality games at each time slot?
Well, our bowl season's fun when all like everyone plays. You don't have all the opt-outs in the world. But week one brings everyone back. This is not a little preseason, I don't want to consider last week a preseason because there was a big game, obviously. And,
oh God.
but the other 3 games that we had were just, no one really cared. I mean, let's be honest here. Who was able to watch the Hawaii and Delaware State game?
You said you watched it. I don't even know how you found it.
I found it on YouTube. Like there was someone streaming it on YouTube. It was illegal 100%, but I watched it.
You probably could have watched it legally on ESPN Plus.
No, you actually couldn't. You couldn't.
No.
It was well. I'm going to bring it right back to us right here. You couldn't watch it on ESPN Plus. It was on Spectrum, which I know a lot of people love their internet. It was on Spectrum, and then outside you had to subscribe to some random service to be able to watch it. So
yeah, I can't remember what the service was, and I'm trying to see if I can find it here before we keep going. But week 1 just brings back waking up on Saturday morning, having college game day, and having a full slate of college football.
Yeah,
there's nothing better, honestly. Waking up, seeing the full slate of games going on. We're not talking about preseason rankings. We're not talking about what projections are for the playoffs. It's week 1, focusing on the game you're playing. We're actually excited to watch some really good games this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Ralph, when you look at just the quality of games that we have here in week 1, it's a lot of fun. There's matchups that, we may see in the 12-team playoff, but it gives us an opportunity to see teams that don't normally play against each other play. And a lot of it's going to be fun. And I'm excited to sit down and watch it live from the 5th Street Bridge in Atlanta. It's going to be a lot of fun. Alex said my Spectrum internet is great, except when it goes out 3 times a month.
Alex, I feel your pain. I know your pain. Experienced your pain many times.
The Team One Sports app was the app you used to get that game on Saturday.
That sounds like the people need to be murdered.
That's not real. Wow. Okay.
That sounds awful. Yeah. Well, so is John Burns in the comments. We don't know what he's talking about, but whoever knows what he's talking about. All right, let's lock it in. It does feel like it could be a must-win week for a team we're going to put here on first. Clemson, Georgia. Georgia, per Bet Online, is a minus 13.5 points ahead of Clemson here I'll tell you one thing. Alex said that's a little violent, Bryce. I'm feeling a little violent. If you haven't been tuned in the past week, I don't resort to violence
last Wednesday, he got a little violent.
I got a little violent last Wednesday. And shared on the message boards. So Clemson, Georgia. Georgia's a 13.5 point favorite. Will, you're going to be in the building for this one. You're double dipping on Saturday, which is just a dream of anybody. But
not watching my team. So,
but do you need to?
How good is it really?
Do you need to? I don't know if you need to. Will does. But Georgia's 13.5 point favorite here. Look, when we look at this game, I think that I'm almost close to drinking the Kool-Aid that Georgia might just blow Clemson out of the water. I don't know why. I think Clemson's defense is very good. I also sat here a week ago and said that I thought Florida State's defense was very good. I do think Clemson has a little more proven talent in terms of guys on the defense. Offensively, though, a lot of it hinges on Cade Klubnik, and we'll see. Let's kind of kick it over to you, Will, first, because Clemson, Georgia, I know you've liked Clemson, and I think we did a prediction show kind of about a month ago, and I don't remember where you went with this one, but this will be interesting. This will be interesting to me because 13.5 points, 2 touchdown favorite for Georgia. If they cover that, that's pretty impressive against a team most people think is maybe now the leader in the ACC.
So when we predicted this game a couple weeks ago, I had Georgia, and I'm going to stick with that. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout. This 13.5 point spread is interesting. I've got questions if Georgia can do that, mainly because of all the questions at the running back position coming into this game. There's a good chance Georgia's not going to have their top 2 running backs. The presumed starter, Trevor Etienne. That's the wrong one. I said the wrong one. Etienne from Florida. Trevor's playing for the Jaguars, right? I think I got them mixed up. But Etienne coming in from Florida.
No, Trevor Etienne plays for Georgia. Travis Etienne.
Okay, so I had it right.
Yeah,
look at that. I usually am not. I usually don't have the names right. Trevor Etienne, the presumed starter. A lot of question marks about his availability. Sounding like a suspension could be coming his way. Kirby Smart has not announced anything and has refused to really make any comments on that situation. it's looking like Cash Jones, the fan favorite, the fourth string running back, might get the bulk of the carries in this game. So what does that mean against a really, really good Clemson front seven? I like Georgia in this game though, but getting to that 13.5 is going to be tight for Georgia. I think Carson Beck is the best quarterback in the country, at least coming into the season. And if Georgia can just keep him upright and give him time to throw, they should be able to win it and kind of do what they want against Clemson in this game.
Yeah, Roger Robertson not going to play in this game either. Will, which you talked about the top two guys. I mean that's going to be something that we'll see how that works. But I will sit with this. I'm gonna go opposite. I think that they might kill Clemson. I don't know what it is. I think Carson Beck's a guy that could find himself in. Well, obviously we know why I'm saying that because I'm a Georgia fan. But I think Carson Beck could begin a potential march to New York with a performance like this. Outside of Stetson Bennett, Georgia hasn't really had a playmaker at the quarterback position. They've had good players at the quarterback position, really probably since Aaron Murray. I think that's safe to say. I mean, Jake Fromm was really good.
Matthew Stafford.
Well, Matthew Stafford played in 2007 and 2008.
Right, but you
don't think Aaron Murray's a playmaker.
No.
I mean, he did lead the SEC in passing yards and touchdowns for a long time, but he was a good football player. They've had good players. I think Carson Beck can be a guy that sees his name in the first 5 picks of the NFL draft. And I think that will kind of start here. I think they're going to be able to do a lot of things through the air that maybe we don't see. I just think they're going to be able to be balanced. And, I'm going to go back to last Saturday. Like we saw when a team can't run the ball and they also really can't pass, it gets ugly quick. I think that if Georgia does struggle to run the ball a little bit, that I think they're more well-equipped to pass the ball. I think the tight end position is going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch in Athens. I mean, Oscar Delp is a dude. Is he Brock Bowers? No, probably a lot of people aren't Brock Bowers, but that's also kind of a unicorn type of player. But, you mentioned just when you look at this team, I think they're well-balanced. Ralph loves him some Cash Jones. He's a big fan of Cash Jones. But I'm excited. I think this could be a game where they maybe backdoor cover at a 13.5. So I'm taking Georgia to win this game. I just wonder, and it all comes down to, for me, is Cade Klubnik a difference maker? Because it's going to be a crazy storyline, and you guys can pick up off this if you want to, and Ralph, you're next. But if Cade Klubnik isn't a guy that can be dynamic, then the ACC is going to be wide open this year. And so I think, I don't know, it's interesting. I think Georgia, I'll take Georgia to cover this one. Now, Dr. Bob, this is not our best bets, but I would take Georgia Tech, or I take Georgia to cover this one, not Georgia Tech. Tech's just always on my mind. But it's going to be interesting because if rent-free, they're just living rent-free in my head. It'll be interesting to watch. I think Georgia can win this game. I talked with someone today who covers this on a national level. I asked him what he thought. He said, I think, and this is kind of where I formed a little bit of the opinion, and I really started to look at it this afternoon. He goes, I think Georgia, it might drag Clemson like the stepchild that no one cares about through the mud this game. He said, I think this could be a game where it could get ugly. Clemson's defense holds for about a quarter and a half, maybe halftime, but the second half, it couldn't be close. And he even said that he thinks Gunnar Stockton could play in the fourth quarter, which would be crazy to think about. I think Georgia's going to be really good this year. I do have them covering this game. Is Cade Klubnik for real? Ralph, I know that's been a guy that you've been high on since out of high school. A lot of people have. Here now, it's your time to prove it in year 2 and first game of the season.
Yeah, so I've been high on Clemson, obviously, with just Klubnik because I think he's such a great athlete. His ceiling's really high, but last year, he wasn't bad. It's just they had no receivers. He had no help. Will Shipley and Phil Maffa had to do the majority of the work for it to help him out and win games. And mid-season Clemson looked just unbearably bad. They won games, but they just didn't win the way they wanted to. And then you saw like the second half of the season they had double overtime loss to Miami and a 7-point loss to NC State. They played the best games they could, but just couldn't finish those games. And so, after the NC State loss, they just kind of mowed through the rest of their schedule. They return a lot of good players offensively, defensively. I think they have one of the best linebackers in the country with Barrett Carter. I mean, he is a The dude's a stud. I mean, he was a stud out of high school. When they signed him, they knew they had an absolute freak. He's a future first rounder in my opinion. I thought he always has been. TJ Parker on the outside, and he's from the area, man. He's a good player. He's a ball player. He's a great pass rush. I think Will said a while back that he's the leader. He's a returning leader in sacks for the team. I'm pretty sure. So,
yes, correct.
And he was only it was a freshman last year, I think.
Young player. He was still a young player. Yeah,
a young player, and he was leading the team in sacks. Coming into this year, so big year for him. Klubnik obviously has to step up. This has to be his year. But look, you're going against the best team in the country, in my opinion. I think Georgia's got the best returning roster right now with who they have. Obviously, you lose Brock Bowers, Lai McConkey. Kendall Milton's gone. I feel like he was there for 12 years. But you return Carson Beck. You return Oscar Delp, who is not Brock Bowers like Bryce said, but he's very good still. The running back room, you lose Kendall Milton, but you bring in Trevor Etienne. You have Branson Robinson. I think is he going to play, Bryce?
Yeah, it's going to be Branson Robinson, Nate Frazier, and Cash Jones are going to be the 3 running backs in the rotation, essentially.
Yeah, and Branson Robinson, we've been waiting for him for 3 years. Dude, there's a picture of him in spring practice his freshman year when he looked bigger than all the other running backs at school at the time.
Yeah.
That picture is still insane to me. And then, Georgia's defense, that front seven, the front seven is unreal. I mean, Michael Williams, also from the area, super talented, had a great year last year. Nazir Stackhouse, he's been at Georgia for 10 years. You can't tell me wrong. Yes. Warren Benson, I feel, has also been there for 10 years. I feel like these guys I've seen on the back of a name or back of a jersey for the last 5 or 6 years. And Chaz Chambliss, who is a very underrated outside linebacker kind of player for them, he plays really well. He's a smart player. He's not he plays very technically sound, and that's the kind of guy Kirby likes and puts him on his defense to work that out. So I'm really excited for that. And obviously the secondary, Julian Humphrey and Malachi Starks. Malachi Starks is a true freshman, was an absolute freak and a game changer. Yeah. Now we're in year 3 of Malachi Starks. I'm talking about this. This is the year he blows up and makes a name for himself and goes first round in the draft.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I mean, you just named some guys right there. I'll even throw this in here. Whoa, dang, Ralph just left, so
lost him
completely. That's completely
okay. Gone.
Oh, I think he accidentally hit the exit out button. Did you accidentally exit out?
I didn't even hit it. I guess okay. I am using a new mouse, and there's a button on the side of the mouse that definitely did backspace. So figure that out today.
Well, I want to say this. I want to say this. Shame on you for discrediting Dylan Bell, the do-it-all guy for this Georgia team.
Why is he not the starting running back?
Because he's the starting ex-receiver. I mean, the dude's a freak. He's really good.
I had the projected depth chart for the Our Lads on here, and I had it scrolled down where I had the just showing Z, so it was just Adam Smith at the top. I didn't see Dylan Bell's name. I'm like, where's Dylan Bell at? And I realized, oh wait, I have it too far up.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it's going to be probably Dylan Bell. It's going to be Dominic Lovett. You're also going to see Arian Smith there. But don't forget about, this wide receiver room is still loaded. Even
and
after
London
Humphreys,
London
Humphreys,
Colby Young from Miami. They've got some dudes. So,
do you want some trends?
Some trends? Give me some trends real quick.
Some betting trends. If you're gonna bet,
Addie's picking here in a second.
First of all, do it responsibly. Second of all, do it at betonline.ag. That's where we're getting all of our lines, all of our numbers.
Yep.
The total has gone under in 4 of Georgia's last 6 games. Clemson is 4-1 against the spread in its last 5 games. Georgia is 4-2 against the spread in its last 6 games against Clemson. And Georgia is 8-0 overall in its last 8 games against the ACC. So,
wow.
Take what you will from that.
How many of those games are just just Georgia Tech though?
Oh God.
No, I'm serious though, because they only play Georgia
There's
Tech.
At least one every year.
So they played Clemson last time. What
2022?
Was that last time they played?
Yeah,
it was longer. The opener in Charlotte.
That was a lot longer than that.
Here's one more, and this one kind of blows my mind. Clemson is 13-5 straight up in its last 18 games against SEC opposition.
A lot of those 5 losses are Georgia.
Yes.
I do have a question, Bryce, and I'm asking you because I think you may know better than me on this answer. Is Dan Jackson starting for Georgia this year?
Because I don't know.
Yeah,
Dan Jackson.
Just look behind you. Just right behind your head. That's all you need to
show. Dan Jackson, is he starting? I don't know.
I honestly don't know. Well, I'm sorry. It's Dan Jackson. Then the backup would be KJ Bolton. So we might see KJ Bolton instead.
KJ Bolton's a freak too. Defensively, I think they're going to be really good. Smile Munden, CJ Allen, Jalen Walker, linebacker. They've just got some dudes. So we'll see. And look, I mean, talking about Clemson in all seriousness here, it really comes down to Cade Club. Now, I think offensive line, like they've got a good offensive line. I think the run game's going to be fine. I'm excited to see Phil Maffa kind of be more of a feature guy than he has just because Shipley's been there so much. But has the receiver, there's names in that receiver room. Has it really improved? Here's your first big data point against a defense that a lot of people say will probably be a top 10 unit in the country by the season's end. So I'm interested in that. Will, you have been high on the fact that it feels like Garrett Riley's a good enough play caller that in year 2, it's going to click. And that's kind of been something you've been talking about all offseason.
Yeah, I think that continuity is really underrated. The quarterback and offensive coordinator, play caller coming back for a second year, but it's going to come down to that wide receiver room improving. They were really, really bad last year. It's hard for the quarterback to do anything when your receivers can't get open. There's only so much scheme you can do to scheme your guys open. If they still can't get open, you've got a really bad group. So I'm really interested. This is a tough task for him. I mean, Georgia's got a great secondary, so we may not see it in this one, but I think as the season goes along, I think we'll see a much improved Clemson offense.
Yeah, it's just so hard in week 1 for that to be able to click automatically. We've got our picks in. Ralph, are you taking Georgia in this one?
You're muted.
Ralph's muted. It's just been a barn burner of a week 1 show already.
Yeah, I'm taking Georgia to cover, yes.
All right, you're taking Georgia to cover. I'm taking Georgia to cover. Will's taking Georgia to win, but it sounds like Clemson to cover. That 13 spread.
I'm going to be lame and not make a pick against the spread, but Georgia's going to win.
I think we all pick Georgia, all 3 across the board.
Because I could see Georgia winning by 40. I could see them winning by 10.
Whatever they decide. That's kind of the feeling I have in this game. Like whatever Georgia wants to win this game by, and I still think Clemson's a good football team. I just think Georgia's really, really good this year.
I think it's a bad matchup for Clemson in bad areas. Georgia's secondary against Clemson's wide receivers being the biggest one.
Georgia's receivers against Clemson's secondary. Yeah.
I think it's a tough matchup.
Yeah, I like it. All right, let's get to the big pick, though. The big winner from last weekend. She picked Georgia Tech, a 10.5-point underdog, straight up, made some people some money. So let's go to the living room where Addie makes the pick, Georgia Clemson. Run it, Ralph. 1. All right, we're back here with week 1 of Addie's picks. Week 0 went great. Yeah, and she got it right. Made people some money. All right, Addie, Georgia Clemson, noon kickoff in Mercedes-Benz. Where you going? First one she touches, ladies and gentlemen. Which one you reaching for? Ooh, it's a tough choice here. It's a tough choice. The right hand's going out. Oh, she's wiping the mouth. She said, Dad, what are you? Oh, the Georgia one. She picks the dogs to win over Clemson. Now, look, several things here. First off, my wife's bold for walking around the state of Louisiana with just Falcons gear on. I don't know why she does it. It's just interesting. She just decides to do it. And then people might say that pulling the Georgia helmet down, did that mean a Clemson pick because she left the helmet standing? I choose to go with that. She chose Georgia. So that's that big pick right there. All right, next game on the docket. And here we go. And Addie's picking 3 of the 4 games we've got on task here tonight. This is going to be one that we're going to be watching at the tailgate at the Georgia Tech Georgia State game. Miami, a 2.5-point favorite against Florida. Guys, I'm going to go first here. I have been sitting on this. I have been wondering what's going to happen. I've been looking at different things. And I'll tell you this, if this game was played in Orlando, if this game was played in Nashville, if it was played in Vegas, Dallas, Timbuktu, Djibouti, Africa, I don't care where this game was played, Miami wins. I also said that Miami would be 9-0 going into Atlanta. And here on August 28th, I'm saying that Florida wins this game in the Swamp. I'm taking the Gators to defend home turf, a massive open season win for Billy Napier. The path to bowl eligibility, I don't know what it is. Maybe I learned my lesson from last week. Hand up situation. When you got a bunch of transfers, you got a bunch of new faces, and you go into an environment that's not comfortable, Ireland last week, but you go into a home place that's going to be rocking because those fans understand the magnitude of what this means. I think that it's not necessarily going to gel. I do still think Cam Ward can be a Heisman finalist, but I'm going to take Graham Mertz and his consistency. They got this kid named Trey Wilson, Eugene Wilson III. He's kind of a SEC commodity. I think that this game he makes the leap to a national type of player where we're like, oh my gosh, this kid's really, really good. I think Florida's going to win this football game close. I got Florida winning this one. I think the Gators still win at home against Miami, and a lot of questions going to be asked in Coral Gables. We get all this talent every single year, and we drop a game to someone we shouldn't. On paper, Miami should not lose this football game. What's it going to say if Cristobal and Miami lose to Billy Napier, two coaches that got to their respective jobs at the same time but seem to go on two different paths? Kind of. Will, we'll go to you first. Your thoughts?
I disagree with you. I'm taking Miami. I just think Miami has the better team at nearly every position. I see your Trey Wilson, and I raise you Xavier Restrepo. I think Restrepo is a better receiver at Miami than Wilson if we're just going to match up positions and personnel. Cam Ward, I think, is a dynamic, electric playmaking quarterback. Graham Mertz kind of puts you to sleep, but that doesn't mean Graham Mertz isn't good and is not good at what he does. And also, we've seen Billy Napier has built an offense around Graham Mertz to get the most out of him, which a good coach should do. But I think Cam Ward's ability to make plays down the field, especially better than Graham Mertz, is going to make the difference in this game. And I think it really comes down to offense. If Florida can get a couple stops early, that's going to make this a close game. Florida cannot get in a track meet. They're not built for track meets. Their offense is not built for track meets. And they're going to have a tough time because I think Miami can really stretch the field vertically and really cause problems. It's a tough environment, but I think Miami, they're going to be able to be balanced. They ran the ball really well last year. Outside of one play that cost them in a big game. And with Cam Ward, I just think it's going to be too much for Florida. Florida's really good at home, but Miami's a really good team.
Yeah. No, I mean, that it makes sense. I mean, I think that when you look at what this team could be on paper, and if they realize that potential too on Saturday, like they could boat race Florida out of their own stadium. I don't know. I think this is going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun game to watch. My hope is that I hope that Cam Ward is legit because it's about time for Miami to have actually found a consistent threat at the quarterback position. I'm just going to go with consistency. I think I got bit in the butt last week picking on paper against the continuity. I feel like Florida has a little more continuity in that area. But like you said, Will, I mean, one of the big storylines is kind of the interior defensive line in this game. Miami's starting 2 transfers in the interior defensive line. They got an NC State transfer and then Simeon Barrow from Michigan State. And then what could be something interesting on the defensive line in general for Florida is Joey Slackman, the Ivy League transfer, going to be making his SEC or his college debut in the big boy football. So I'm going to go. I'm sticking with Florida here, but Ralph, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, if anyone else is playing quarterback for Miami, I'm probably with you on Florida. But with Cam Ward, he's just too much of a playmaker not to choose with. I think got one of the best playmaking abilities in the back as a quarterback this year. Obviously, the Heisman has him as one of the top candidates for a Heisman this year. He's projected to be really good. Help out Miami. You have Miami winning the ACC this year. I like Cam Ward. I think that this is the reason why they win this game. I'm going to go Miami minus 2.5. There's not much I can really say. I want Florida to be good. I've always said this. I think when the SEC, when the top teams are good, it's way more fun to watch. And Florida, being one of those top brands in the conference, is when they're good, they're fun to watch. It's fun to watch games that are actually, good instead of watching blowouts happen. So
yeah,
I go back to last year when Florida went to Utah and played horribly in that game. And I just think that I don't know if they can do that this year. I don't know if they can perform to the top level this year. I just think Miami goes in, wins the game. I think they cover. I mean, I think it's a close game, but I still think they cover.
Yeah. No, I don't hate that. I mean, this is a fine line in terms of 2.5 points on the road. Here's one stat that I found that was interesting. Pro Football Focus does a stat that essentially tries to kind of give you, they break down every single throw a quarterback makes, and they compare to what should have been or maybe a turnover-worthy type of throw. So essentially what should have been an interception, maybe the defense didn't capitalize or, the quarterback got bailed out, which, look, I know that we deal in a world of absolutes. We're not necessarily Sith Lords, but we do deal in a world of absolutes. But this is something for me that Cam Ward threw 25 turnover-worthy throws last year. Now, he only had 7 picks, but he put the ball in danger. That's where I think to pull off an upset of sorts, if Florida can capitalize that with a defense that I think can be pretty solid, that's where you could see for my pick at least, you could start to see this game kind of change tides. You could start to see if Florida, get some motivation. Now, look, I'll say this too. I think that the perceived media attention on Florida does not accurately reflect how that team feels about their chances here in 2024. We've all been down on Florida. Like we've all pretty much said, and like Will, you started out with talking about how they've got the hardest back end of a schedule that we think we've ever seen in the history of college football. Now, obviously, we say that, here on August 28th, things can change. But it almost feels like the beginning of half of the season, I just think Florida's going to know what's at stake because what's at the back half. If you can steal one, to me, would be very interesting. So, I don't know. I think a game could be kind of ugly, kind of a messy game week 1. And it's going to be hot. I believe this is a 3:30 Eastern kickoff in Gainesville. Brutal weather. It's going to be so hot down there. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I've got Florida, so let's kind of go through the picks before we get to the master picker there. So let's go. Ralph, you're taking Miami into cover in this one. Will, are you taking Miami into cover?
Yes.
And I'm taking Florida to win this game. So yeah. Gators, Canes, back to the living room where we have the big pick. All right, another big game on tap here in week 1. Addie, we need the attention.
It's okay. Look at the camera.
We have Miami against Florida. Who's going to win, Addie? Who's going to win? She's going in. The first one she touches, ladies and gentlemen. Does she like the Canes or the Gators? Let's see. Oh, she picks the Gators to beat the Canes. An upset in the swamp. Good job, Addie. Now, I had already locked in my pick before that, but it is hard to go against someone that looks as cute as she does. She picks Florida. Hey, look, there's a reason it's a 2.5 point spread here. Kind of a coin flip game, so we'll see how this thing goes on Saturday. That's a 3:30 Eastern kickoff. And some good comments on it. Albert says, Cam Ward hasn't faced an SEC defense. They're going to blitz the hell out of them, pressure, bust pipes. They might just do that. Ryan said it was 24-11 last year, and it's going to be very interesting. And Alex says, due to some insider info, I am now picking Florida to win.
Look, that's a trustworthy insider.
Hey, look, I'll tell you one thing. She was right, and she was right last week, so we'll see how it happens.
Hey, here's my question. Does Addie know that Damian Martinez transferred to Miami?
I gave her the depth charts, so I don't know. I mean, she can't even read, so I don't really know.
She can't even
know,
speak either. So
She can't speak either. A lot of goo goo gaga, but other than that, not too much. But that's where that game sits. So we sit across the board there with Florida and Miami. All right, another one on tap, guys. This is probably the one that I'm most excited to talk about. I don't know if my pick is going to be the same as yours, but I do want to set the stage for it. I like Texas A&M in this game, and I think the reason being, and my child's name is not Maddie, it's Addie, but that's okay. I'm okay.
I
with
understand. I see where you went with that. I get
Well,
it.
I do. I appreciate Albert. She appreciates that as well. She can't really eat anything other than milk right now, but we do appreciate it. So I'm going with A&M -3. I think they cover in this one. Here's my reasoning. Two things, really. I like Notre Dame this year. I think they're going to be a physical football team. I think this game is a true toss-up because I also think a cool storyline in this one is Riley Leonard at Notre Dame. I don't know, you guys have read the article in The Athletic where they kind of did, talked with him coming off of surgery, coming off of injuries, didn't really get into spring ball, but he has tried to ingrain himself. He brought he's from Fairhope, Alabama, actually, and he brought his entire wide receiving core and running back down to Fairhope. They spent some time down there at the high school working out together. So it seems like they're building great continuity up there. I think Marcus Freeman is a good football coach. I think defensively they're going to be solid. Here's where I get you. You're going to be playing this game at Kyle Field, which is going to be tough in terms of an environment. And I also think that a healthy Connor Wegman is probably one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC that we're not talking about. He just hasn't been healthy. So with him at the helm and your head coach knowing everything there is to know about Riley Leonard and his strengths, I'm picking Texas A&M off of that. A&M did lose Walter Nolan. They brought in a transfer that is a solid football player, by the way, on that defensive line. And I don't know if I don't think that – I'm not saying you're not going to miss Walter Nolan, but you still have both Shamars there. You're going to have that guy. Defensively, they're going to be solid. If they make enough plays, I think the momentum could get rolling. And I think this has the chance to be the most fun football game we watch all weekend in terms of this. So I've got the Aggies winning close. But I'll also tell you this. I watched the press conference. Former LSU OC Mike Denbrock is now the OC at Notre Dame. The interesting part of this is Denbrock came out, and I don't know if this was in a more of a public setting or it was said as he was reaching the podium, but he told reporters essentially, go back and watch what we did last year with LSU. And that's kind of been the idea. There's a lot of RPO action with a tight end. You're reading the end, seeing what he's going to do. You're either handing it off. Now, look, Riley Leonard is not Jaden Daniels. I understand that. Or you're throwing to the tight end the flat. Notre Dame typically has good tight ends. They do have a fun running back that I think is going to be really fun to watch this year. Ralph, are you looking at that depth chart right now by any chance? Jeremiah Love. Underrated. Was reading some stuff out of him out of fall camp. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch him. Riley Leonard can move a little bit. If he can get north and south, Notre Dame could win this game, but I like Texas A&M for all the reasons I laid out earlier. Will, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I like Texas A&M in this game. I like them to cover the 3 points, mainly because of the injuries that have already hit Notre Dame. They're starting left and right tackle, both out for the season, I believe, but I know for a fact they're not playing this game. I think Connor Wegman is possibly the most underrated quarterback in the SEC, partially because he's been injured the last 2 years. If he can stay healthy, you're looking at Texas A&M taking a major bounce back. I think with Mike Elko, they're going to have that new head coach bump, that new head coach boost, especially early in the year. Getting a big home game for his game one is really big. And Bryce, I totally agree with you. I think him knowing everything about Riley Leonard gives Texas A&M a bit of an edge. They know how to fluster him. They know how to get in his grill. And I think that if they can block, if Notre Dame struggles to block Nick Scoutertown, I think it'll be a long game, and Riley Leonard will be in the turf a lot at Kyle Field. But I'm like you, Bryce. I think Notre Dame's going to be a really good team this year. Even with the injuries they've had, I think they normally have really good depth on their offensive line. And that's going to be tested in week one But I'm going to go with Texas A&M, and I got them to cover that 3-point spread.
I like it. I like it. I mean, I think, like I said, I think this has an ability to be a very, very good physical football game. Ralph, we both go Aggies. Where are you sitting with this one?
Well, this is also college game day. I just realized that. I didn't know that at first. I'm going with A&M because I think home field advantage plays huge in this game. I think Kyle Field's one of the hardest places to play, no matter what team it is they're playing or what time of the year. Mike Elko, obviously, he's ready to play. He makes his SEC debut. He gets a really good and really talented and well-coached Notre Dame team to come into town. But both teams are banged up on both sides of the ball. I mean, A&M's without their running backs. Notre Dame's missing some offensive linemen. It's going to be one of those games where who has the depth to win it. Who's built up the depth over the spring and over a fall camp. Who's putting the more work. And this is, obviously we talk about that year in, year out. That's simple football, and that's what you're supposed to do is build depth. But it truly matters in this game when both teams are missing players. So Connor Wegman last year was one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, but got hurt. Jalen Henderson, the backup, played really well. He really did. Yeah. I thought he shined in his few games he played in, his few attempts. He played well. This is an A&M team that Mike. We talked about Mike Elko coming here, and now he has all the weapons in the world to recruit and build a terrifying offense and defense every year. So in year one, I expect so. I don't think he's going to start slow. I think he's going to go out with a big win against Notre Dame and and build this season up. So I got A&M covering. I think they play very well in this game. I think they take advantage of Notre Dame's losses on the offensive line and give it a low-scoring game for Notre Dame.
Alex says the Leprechauns are better dancers than the Aggie cult leaders. It is the weirdest, most uncomfortable thing I have ever seen in my life, and I saw it in person last year. It's very weird. Very weird.
I'm not really convinced this is going to be a low-scoring game. The weather is going to be rough. Weather in College Station, hot and humid. No surprise for late August. There's been the heat has come back this week. I think I don't know how it was in Baton Rouge, but it was very nice in Columbus. Temperatures have been heating up everywhere. So Notre Dame's had about a week to get back in some heat. So that will help them. But I wonder what it's going to look like. We know Kyle Field, man, it can get, especially those 330 kicks. They show that thermometer on the field. It's like 110, 115 degrees. So we'll see. Depth's going to be tested. But I think this game could go over and have a ton of points. The over-under is in the 40s. I think 46.5 was the last that I saw. I think we're going to have some points.
Well, and I think you can too, because I think you're going to have two good quarterbacks and quarterbacks that have enough experience to be effective despite the elements. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about Riley Leonard and Notre Dame this year. I think that, I had them in my playoff. I think that they can be a playoff team this year. They can position themselves with a win on Saturday for that 5 seed, especially with a win over an SEC team. I think this is a good game. We talked about must-win games. To me, it feels like more of a must-win game, and this might be kind of weird for A&M. Just in terms of what they have on the SEC slate, because Notre Dame still has some opportunities, and it's going to look. If Notre Dame loses this game and goes 10-2 or even 11-1, they're probably still going to make the playoff because look, brand value matters. Mm-hmm. For A&M, you kind of look at their schedule, and I wanted to pull it up here because I was interested. Just when you look at how many more opportunities you have. Okay, so we're sitting here looking at Notre Dame or A&M. In the SEC, you play this game. Then you're going to play McNeese State. You immediately go on the road to Florida, which I think is kind of an interesting game. You play Bowling Green, which will, you're not a team out of Atlanta, so you should be able to deal with that one. And then,
hey, they lost to App State last year.
Who did?
Texas A&M.
That was 2
years.
No,
they beat them late. Or did they? They lost.
That was.
I thought that was last year.
I thought that was 2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago because they played Troy on game day the week after.
Oh,
that's true. Here we go. They won a playoff game at Notre Dame so bad. Yeah, no, they do. They
lost in Miami week 2 last year.
That's right. I don't know. I just sit here with A&M like, you look at that schedule, the opportunities they have. They're going to host Missouri. They're going to host LSU. You're going to host Texas. All of your perceived tough SEC games plus this one, you get at home. So you really have a chance if you don't win the SEC or you don't make it to Atlanta, which none of us, I think that they will. You've really got a good shot to, put up a good resume, and it could start here on Saturday. So we'll see. I still think, and all of that saying is maybe I just countered my entire point. This isn't a must win. I meant to say for A&M because you still have good games on the resume, and it'll be interesting to see. Mike Elko, yeah. I think the floor is a little bit higher for A&M than maybe people think, just because of the jokes we make about Jimbo Fisher and everything. Who's on a radio show now, by the way? I don't know if you guys saw that. It's going to be nuts. So Notre Dame, A&M. Any final thoughts before we go to our guest speaker? All right, roll the tape. Back to the living room we go. We didn't have one for that one. So, no, false alarm. Absolute false alarm. All right, game number 4 and the final one we're talking about here tonight. This is Sunday night's matchup. It's going to be fun. This is going to be a game where this game was at 3.5, and I think I told you to take it. I think I said it came the other day, and I said, look, let's take this. Let's take LSU -3. I think LSU wins this game. And the reason being is it's so many storylines. 2 defenses trying to prove themselves. 2 young quarterbacks trying to replace Heisman Trophy winners, the past 2 Heisman Trophy winners. And then 2 coaches that they don't need a win, but they need a win. Like, they don't need it in terms of they're going to get fired on Monday if they would lose this game. But they need this in terms of to kick the season off. I think Brian Kelly and LSU have to get this monkey off their back of not winning. And since he's been there, and like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, since 2019 in that ridiculous national title season. So I like LSU's offensive line. That's the matchup I'm watching here. It's a veteran group. To me,
it's a loaded offensive line.
It's a loaded offensive line. Now, here's the kicker. You're replacing the center from last year. That's the perceived weakness. But, man, you have 2 first-round talents that bookend your offensive line, and then your guards are dudes that have just played a ton of football. And this is a legit Joe Moore Award type of offense.
You've got 4 NFL offensive linemen.
Oh, hands down. And the center, DJ Chester, that's a kid who could play in the NFL one day. So, yeah, I agree. I think they're going to be able to run the football. I think they're going to be able to do some things, and it's going to ease Garrett Nussmeier into his now role as, QB1 for LSU.
Yeah, for LSU, it's going to have to be different, right? No Jaden Daniels, no Mike Denbrock. This offense is going to have to be different, and I think they've got to do it on the ground. And Bryce, LSU's running back situation better than I do, but really for me, we talk about that offensive line, and it's the matchup against USC's defensive line. You can look at height and weights. We love to have that discussion around here on the Crowded Booth. We love to talk about height and weights of linemen. The numbers just don't match up. And LSU's offensive line has proven it. They can be nasty. They can get downhill. They love to run the ball. And I just don't think in the interior, outside of, former Georgia signee Bear Alexander, USC doesn't have a whole lot in the interior. So this is one of those games that could get ugly. If LSU can run the ball and control the line of scrimmage on the offensive side and take all that pressure off Garrett Nussmeier, this one could get ugly. You talk about defenses. I'm worried about both defenses. So expect a lot of points. This game's also being played inside, so you don't have to worry about the weather. This could become a shootout, could become a track meet. But another thing I'm interested to see is this new look LSU wide receiver room. The talent that LSU has churned out at wide receiver the last 4 years has been really fun to watch. I don't know that this group has the ceiling or could match up to what last year's room did, but that doesn't mean that this group's not going to be one of the tops in the SEC and one of the top 20, 30 in the country. Yeah. So what are they going to look like with a new quarterback? I like LSU in this game. I like them to roll.
Yeah, you mentioned receiver. Hey, we're a little bit closer. Hit the wrong one. You mentioned the receiver room. You have Kyron Lacey, who was kind of that third option as a receiver last year. He has – guys, I said this the other day on the radio here in Baton Rouge. when we saw Malik Neighbors in fall camp last year, the plays he was making, that's what we've seen out of Kyron Lacy. Now, I'm not saying that Kyron Lacy is going to be drafted in the top 10. I'm just saying the focus. And Will, you mentioned this receiver room. If you're a young receiver, you've seen how it's done. Like there's a model of if you come to LSU, you're going to not just be in the league, you're going to be a dude. I mean, that's what they have started to do, not just the past 4 years. I mean, you go back to 2019, which is kind of on the edge of those 4 years, where the group that they had with Chase and Jefferson, they Terrace Marshall before that, Russell Gage, and then you go obviously back to the 2013s, early 2010s when they had Odell and Jarvis Landry. I mean, it's just become this thing that if you come play and you're starting out there, you're probably going to be a dude in the league. One of the interesting guys I'm excited to watch on Sunday night is I forgot his name. Why did I just forget his name? CJ Daniels, the transfer from Liberty, big-bodied receiver. He walked into player interviews the other night, and I said, well, here comes Lilburn's finest. And he said, what you know about Lilburn? I said, I know that Parkview's got a good baseball program. I didn't know they were good at football, and he laughed about it. But, it's just one of those things that they've kind of restocked there. I don't know if you guys know this. I'm excited to watch tight end Mason Taylor. I don't know if you guys know that's former Miami Dolphin defensive end Jason Taylor's son, had the big catch against Alabama his freshman year, was hurt last year. So offensively, and I'll throw it to you here, Ralph, offensively, this is going to be fun. I think this is a game where, and Ralph, you tell me if I'm wrong here and what you think about it. Defensively, I think USC is going to be better than what they were last year. And I think LSU will be better. I just don't know if we're going to see all the fruits of their labor from fall camp, all the positive vibes in a game with two pretty good offenses. And I think it's going to come down to what defense makes the momentum changing play. Like, is there a defense that really makes a big play that turns the tide of the football game?
Yeah. I am worried about a few things about LSU or USC's defense is that it's majority transfers. As listed here on this depth chart, it looks like it's a 5 to 6 guys starting that are transfers. Normally on offense, that's worry. You worry about that because your guys are not clicking at all. It seems like everyone's no one can really get anything going. Defensively, I'm more worried about it because that means they're not used to playing with each other. They're people are going to be missing formations, who's calling the plays, who's calling audibles back there for linebackers, and there's a big question mark on defense. Obviously, Bear Alexander being the only guy I think that's really had a lot of playing time on that defense. But if anything we've learned about USC in the past few years is their offense is the only thing that really shows out, honestly. And then going into last year, when Caleb Williams said he was not going to play in the bowl game, which we all knew he wasn't. If it wasn't going to be a playoff game, he was not going to play. No one really knew about Miller Moss. No one knew who he was, if he was good, and he came out in that bowl game, and he slung that rock like it was a EA college football game. No one expected him to do that, and he went out there and played the best game I've ever seen of a guy who just had not played all year long.
6 touchdowns, I think it was.
Yeah,
5 or 6 at least. Yeah,
it was against Louisville. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
a team that we thought Louisville was so good last year, and he went out there and boat raced them. I'm trying to pull it up as fast as I can. My computer's being really slow tonight. He was 23 of 33, 372, and 6 touchdowns.
Jeez.
I mean, the kid had a great game. But with LSU this year, look, you return. I know you lose Malik Burns, you lose Brian Thomas, but you also bring in, like you said, Kyron Lacy and Chris Hilton. Chris Hilton to me is also a very underrated receiver. I thought he showed some glimpses last year of being a promising future for him. Yeah. I think he can turn it over this year for them. I've always been on the Nuss train. I think he's really talented.
It's the Nuss bus with Ralph. The Nuss bus.
Can't call it that. It's too close to the Gus bus, and I'm not talking about Gus Malzahn. I'm talking about the Gus bus from Benchwarmers. The only one that matters. I am worried about the run game. Like Will said, the run game better than we do. But when you have an offensive line like LSU does, I don't think you really need some super running back back there. You don't need a Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Leonard Fournette. You just need a guy who can just run north to south, break a tackle, and don't fumble the ball. I mean, that's simple. You don't need much more than that. And I think LSU got those guys. Defense, I told you, talking to you the other day, I do not want to see Major Burns play. I can't watch it anymore. It's like watching a kid who wants just to hit people only and just if he wants to play, go play linebacker. Gain some weight, go play linebacker.
Well, here's the thing. He is playing a star position that Blake Baker is exclusively playing at the depth of linebacker. That's where he's going to start. So it's going to be Greg Penn. It's going to be Harold Perkins, who's a heat-seeking missile. And then it's going to be Major Burns. I'm sorry, no Austin Osbury. He was on the scout team exclusively during fall camp. But this is where I said, you kind of talk about this defense in general. Like, you're just going to have to play sound football. The biggest thing LSU did, and I'll never forget this, post-Alabama, so this is middle of November or early November, Greg Penn's veteran linebacker comes out there and talks to us, and we said, hey, where did you feel like things started to kind of unravel in that game? And they only lost by 2 touchdowns, and Jaden Daniels got hurt. But where do you feel like that unraveled? And here's the thing, and this is a nightmare scenario for any coach. We're just not communicating. We can't relay that. We can't get the call from the field and relay it to what's going on, or from the sideline and get to what's going on in the field. So that was the issue last year. And that was in November, guys. Like, you can't have that happening in November with your defense. So it feels like if that's corrected, this defense has the athletes and the players to be able to do what they're going to do. Now, you talked about the running back room, and you mentioned they don't have a Leonard Fournette. They got this kid named Caleb Jackson, who hasn't quite stiff-armed anybody to the magnitude of Fournette, but he did run a dude over from Mississippi State last year. He's a freight train. He is scary. You got Josh Williams, who a 6th-year senior. He was on the national title team back in 2019 as a walk-on. Great blocker, veteran guy. And then, you have John Emery, who is
still there.
He's still there. Entered the portal, thought he was going to UCLA, and came back. So he's still there. So they've got some guys in that running back room. But I think this is going to be a fun game where we could see both quarterbacks sling it. And we'll see. We'll see how it fares. So I've got LSU to cover. I think they cover 4.5 points. Will, I think you said you'd take LSU to cover in this one too. Ralph, your thoughts?
I'm taking LSU to cover and take the over in points.
All right. I like it. Final pick of the evening. And here we go. Let's roll. All right. For her third and final pick of the week, LSU USC Sunday night primetime. Who's she going to pick? Now, Addie, remember where you live. The Trojans or the Tigers? Oh, she picks the LSU Tigers. A big win for LSU in Las Vegas. Addie, any final comments on this week's picks? Good stuff. All right, that's the final
pick. Threaten your daughter.
Remember
where you
Baton Rouge, moron, not in the. Come on, I'm not going to. All right, we're going to get out of here, but before we do, let's go best bets. Will, let's knock yours out first. What's your best bet of week 1? Remember, it's going on the spreadsheet.
This is sicko committee right here. Kent State plus 24 at Pitt. We cannot stand Pitt. We think Pitt should reevaluate a lot of what it's doing with this football program. I don't even know where you can watch this game. It's probably on the CW. I think I may have seen that at one time, but I don't know. This is more about Pitt just not being good at football. And Kent State, they were one of the worst teams in the country last year. Surely they'll be a little bit better and cover this 24-point spread. So I'm taking the Golden Flashes to cover 24 against Pitt.
Okay. Undeniably just sicko committee right here.
It is.
Someone clip this for me. It's 12 o'clock on ESPNU, by the way.
Oh, I'm not.
That's almost as bad as the CW.
Sit in Mercedes-Benz watching this game on his phone.
I'm gonna be just like this. Not watching Georgia Clemson.
There's going to be potentially 20 NFL players on the field. He's going to be watching. No, he's going to watch this game where I don't even know if there's a CFL guy out there. All right, Ralph, let's go yours real quick. Let's get to your best bet.
I am going to the good old Morgantown. West Virginia +8 against at home versus Penn State. I really like this West Virginia team. I like what Garrett Green's got. I love Neil Brown, obviously. It's a first week matchup. Penn State's got to go to a Morgantown they get rowdy week one. Every year is rowdy week one. They don't care who they play. That backyard brawl against Pittsburgh a few years ago was fun to watch. It's a good matchup. I like West Virginia though. I think they can cover that 8-point spread, and I might even have them winning this game.
I like it.
Because James Franklin needs to win this game. Honestly,
he does.
He has to.
He does. If James Franklin loses this game, this is going to be bad. I almost want to pick West Virginia money line. I want to see the Mountaineers win this game. I think we all do. All right. That's Ralph's best bet of the week. And the final one for the Excel spreadsheet.
Another sicko mode.
UNLV Houston. I'm taking the over at 54. Look, the running Rebs, Barry Odom, they like to play really fast. Houston with Willie Fritz, they do slow the tempo down, but Houston was one of the worst teams in offensive efficiency last year. And I know Ralph can't stand Dana Holgorsen. I know that you don't like him at all. And you don't like Houston because they hurt you, Ralph. They hurt you. Now think about it, and you'll understand why they hurt you. Do, 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 do. Who's the coach at Houston, Ralph? Willie Fritz.
Yes.
Where did Willie Fritz come from?
Yeah, I know this whole situation. I
act like you didn't know.
I was just don't want to talk about it. Obviously,
oh, you just want to talk about it. Okay.
Look, Dana Holgorsen ruined everything. Okay,
so there we go. That's what we were waiting on. UNLV Houston. I'm taking the over at 54, and that's what I'm going with. And that's the best bets. That's college football. That's week one. Make sure you tune in. We'll be back live again on Monday evening, college football wise talking. We get all of our lines up there at betonline.ag. Make sure you head over there and let them know that the Crowded Booth sent you. He is Will Mannis. My name is Bryce Koon, and that is Ralph Leary. This is the Crowded Booth. We'll be live, like I said, on Monday night with a week one reactions and recap. And then obviously Tech fans, make sure you subscribe to the channel, set up notifications, Jonesy, so you know we're live. And we'll be live from Fifth Street Bridge in Atlanta on Saturday. We'll see you there.
There it is. That's what I was waiting on.
Yeah.
The live on Saturday?
Yeah.
We'll be live on Saturday. Hey, it's going to be a lot of fun, a ton of fun. Make sure you head over to Fifth Street Bridge, Georgia Tech, Georgia State. Going to be a lot of fun. And hey, we'll get this real quick before we get out of here. Andrew says he needs Will and Ralph's Georgia State versus Georgia Tech pick in terms of the spread. Is it still 21.5 or did it go down to 20.5?
I think it's 21.
It's just 21.
Okay. Real quick, guys.
All right, I'll give it to you. Georgia Tech minus 21.
Ralph?
Georgia Tech minus 21, but I don't think it's like a 28.
What's the over-under in this game?
I think it's 42-20. Over-under is 55.5.
I thought you were about to tell me the over-under was 42, and I was about to say all of my money on the over.
No, I think it's going to be like a 42-21, like a 42-20 or something like that. It's going to be they go up early, and then they'll like score in the third quarter, maybe once or twice, and then Georgia Tech just blows it out in the fourth quarter. So
I don't know why you'd say that because I thought y'all hated Georgia Tech.
We hate everybody, Bryce. We hate everything.
And Will's not impressed by anything.
I'm not impressed by anything
or anybody. Hey, thanks so much for watching. My name is Bryce Koon. That's Ralph Leary. That's Will Mannis. We appreciate you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Subscribe to the channel on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.